An attack on a football field in the
Here, does this show the graphic imagery? I don't want to see it because it's really fucked up.
Israeli-occupied Golan Heights killed at least 12 children over the weekend. Israel's military spokesman referred to those killed as Israeli citizens, but when he did so, he was immediately interrupted.
These guys are not Israeli. They famously didn't accept Israeli citizenship in Majdal Shams. There's an iconic picture from 1982 of them throwing their passports to the ground. Keep in mind, 90% of Golan Heights population was ethnically cleansed in 1967 and the years that followed. Majdal Shams was one of those towns that stayed pretty much untouched. Every other town was partially or fully emptied.
Interrupted.
שבה אזרחי מדינת ישראל ממג'דל שמס, קהילה, עדה דרוזית. הם לא אזרחי מדינת ישראל. אנחנו מחבקים אותם.
And when some Israeli politicians, including far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich, tried to attend the funeral of the victims, this happened.
Like, it's so obvious that they're like trying to act like they give a shit about these people.
So what is this all about, and how can it help us understand the Druze community that live in the highly contested Israeli-occupied Golan Heights? So this attack happened on the Druze village of Majdal.
More stuff about Golan Heights. Donald Trump permanently recognized the annexation of Golan Heights. It's Syrian territory that Israel currently occupies. Donald Trump made America recognize that occupation as just and legitimate, which was insane.
Majdal Shams. And the 12 children who were killed were not Israeli passport holders or Israeli citizens. In fact, they were Syrian Arabs, like much of the Druze community who live in that area.
لتوضيح نقطة غير واضحة عند كثيرين، سكان مجدل شمس والجولان المحتل ككل يعرفون نفسهم باعتبارهم سوريين 100%. منذ احتلالهم عام 67 حتى اليوم رفضوا كل محاولات إسرائيل لسلخهم عن وطنهم الأم سوريا.
And most residents.
Trump just followed through on a promise made in the Clinton cabinet. Yeah, dude, I know. There's just like such a weird reason that like no other administration did that though. It's everything that the Trump cabinet did or the Trump administration did in terms of our dealings with Israel was, you know, events that were previously set in motion that every Democratic and even Republican administrations would not touch for an obvious reason, because they knew that the tensions would inevitably rise if they were to do so. If they were to give Israel that bone that they were desperately looking for, that they would go crazy. That's why Donald Trump was uniquely bad on Israel. That like these were prior promises and assurances made that always had gotten in prior administrations, both Democratic and Republican, continuation. Like they would be like, oh yeah, we're passing it down. We're passing it down. There were multiple things that he did, like the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem. This was another thing that they just kept pushing. They kept pushing back on. Donald Trump, on the other hand, was like, no, fuck it, YOLO. We love that.
Of Majdal Shams absolutely refuse Israeli citizenship. Following the attack, many people were quick to point blame on who was responsible for the deadly strike. Israel, the US, and some Syrians blamed the Lebanese group Hezbollah. But Hezbollah claimed the strike was from a misfired Israeli Iron Dome rocket. The funeral procession.
Oh yeah, there is a Druze settlement called Trump Heights in Golan Heights, a planned Israeli settlement in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights named in honor of Donald Trump. Dude, I don't think people understand how much Israelis love Donald Trump.
For the 12 killed children was attended by much of the Druze community in Majdal Shams. The residents kicked out several Israeli politicians who tried to attend the funeral, including members of the Israeli parliament and in particular far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich, and as they kicked him out they shouted, "Get out of here, you criminal." Those living in the occupied Golan Heights are now a mix of Syrian Arabs and Israeli settlers. Syrians in the Golan taking on Israeli citizenship has become more common since the Syrian war erupted in 2011, but the vast majority reject it. Non-citizen Druze, who are a religious minority group, are regarded as having permanent residency status by the Israeli government, but can't participate in elections. Some members of the Druze community do in fact serve in the Israeli army. The Golan Heights is a strategic area that borders Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and Jordan. It's recognized as part of Syria but was occupied by Israel in 1967 and later annexed by Israel in 1981. UN Resolution 242 calls for Israel to withdraw from the Golan Heights and other territories it occupied in 1967, including
best democracy in the Middle East,
Gaza and the West Bank. But back in 2019, Donald Trump said the US should fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Some Israeli officials who blamed Hezbollah for the attack now warn of a strong response, something they've done multiple times in the past 9 months. But Lebanon's parliament speaker said Lebanon absolutely does not want war. But now many people are asking the question, will Israel use this attack to further expand its war?
Yeah, I mean, look, is there a likelihood that this was a Hezbollah strike? I think so. I don't think it's like that. Like, there's no strategic reason for Hezbollah to do this, but, you know, I know that Hezbollah has denied responsibility. There are some on the ground eyewitnesses, but I don't think this was highly unlikely. It was the Iron Dome. The explosion was far too big for the Tamir warhead, and the interceptor would be burning fuel right in until impact. So a glowing projectile with smoke trail would be visible in videos flying into the ground if this was the case, which it wasn't. I don't think even Israel wants the smoke of a second front without the U.S. being ready to go boost on the ground. No, they do. Don't they typically own up to it when they strike? Why deny now? Like, it could be a Hezbollah misfire because they didn't like actually strike Israeli targets and instead ended up striking a bunch of Druze children playing football. So like, in order to save face. But in terms of like this being a false flag operation by Israel, that is the other angle here. That's what people are saying that it is, or a potential Tamir interceptor misfiring and like striking this target. I don't know. I don't think that's the case. Seems a little bit far-fetched. They've claimed misfires before though and admitted when they were at fault. When Hezbollah did before hit civilians, he admitted it and apologized, which is honestly weird if they deny that. I don't know. I've been watching Israeli media very closely for the past few days, and despite trying, they just couldn't, for the life of them, find a Jablani Druze resident of Majdal Shams that would actually call for the war. The few interviewees that they did were originally from inside the Green Line. Every signal from the Druze community has been a call for peace. But for those of you who are asking, like, Israel doesn't want the smoke from a two-front war, no, there's definitely a lot of appetite in Israel for a two-front war. I do not think that Israeli leadership is thinking clearly about opening up a second front against a much better equipped enemy. La 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 la, no